Number 1. Storm shelter. I live in a house that has an underground basement. It is the first house that I ever rented that had one of those, but it was also one of those unfinished basements that is only accessible through the back of the house. So, except for going down there to check the fuse box, to reset the water heater, or to change the filter on the air conditioning unit, we never really went down there for any reason. I live in a very poor neighborhood. It's in a town that is in the middle of nowhere. We have a lot of stray cats and dogs in this area. We also tend to have a few homeless people in this town too. However, I guess the good thing is that the homeless people tend to change a lot, so I'm guessing that no one really stays homeless for a long time. I think the longest I've ever seen a person that was the same homeless person has been about a year. There are some regular hangouts under a bridge and by a gas station that seem to be where the homeless are. Unfortunately, they seem to change up a bit. I will sometimes buy them something to eat or even a pack of cigarettes to help them out. And since I interacted with them, I knew when new people would come in and others would disappear. I never really knew what happened to them when they were gone, but I always hoped it was going back to their homes or something. I have 2 roommates, one male and one female that I live with. We also have a couple of cats too. I know I'm giving you a whole lot of information right off the bat, but it's important to know for how the story progresses. So we have been in this house for about 3 years now, and it hasn't really been much of anything exciting happening. Even the storms here are pretty boring. That all changed a few months ago. We had a storm that came along that was unlike anything that had ever happened, and one I will never forget. I remember waking up in the morning and being confused because my clock said it was daytime, but it was so dark out still. But then a large strike of lightning flashed in the sky, lighting things up for just a moment. After I got over being startled, I got up and went over to my computer to check the weather for the day, and I learned that we were supposed to have thunderstorms all day long, and we were also in a tornado watch that day. Fortunately, this was a weekend day, so I didn't have to go to work. The storms were continuous throughout the entire day. I was very happy to not be out in them, but also I was able to keep an eye on the weather website and monitor whether the tornado watch was still going on. My roommates were not as fortunate as I was, though. They had to go to work in the evening, and they were gone long before it even got dark out. Well, naturally dark. So it was just me and the pets home from then on. It was pretty late in the evening, and still pitch black outside. Even when I was still home by myself, and that's when I heard a huge explosion, and immediately all the electricity went out. And it just wasn't the electricity in the house, it was the electricity everywhere. All the other houses in the area lost their electricity. Even the street lights went out. The explosion that I heard, I found out later, was one of those transformer things blowing up. Fortunately for me, I had been sitting at my desk, and I had my phone plugged into my computer. It was fully charged, so I grabbed it to turn on the flashlight. The very moment that the phone was in my hands, though, it started buzzing hard. Looking at the screen, I noticed that the tornado watch had been upgraded to a tornado warning. There was an advisement to find shelter as soon as possible. I had never been in a tornado before, but I knew the best thing to do was get into the basement. I had to go through the house first, though, as quickly as possible to round the cats up. And then, I put one on each arm, as I then had to use the light from my phone to go outside and find my way around the house in the storm and dark to the basement door. And anyone who has ever had cats can tell you, carrying them around in the rain is not the easiest thing to do. By the time I got around to the door, the cats were struggling to get down. I put them down on the top of the basement stairs. They were already worked up from the storm, even before taking them out in the rain, so they just stayed on the stairs while I closed the door. I had to pick them up again and carry them down into the actual basement, because I felt that was safer than the stairwell. The basement was always a pretty creepy place to begin with. It was even worse at this point, in the middle of a storm and a tornado watch. It was unfinished, and it led into the crawl space under the rest of the house. If there was electricity in the house, I would be able to barely see a little way into the crawlspace. As it was, though, it was just dark. The light from the phone flashlight was not very good, as I am positive everyone with a phone probably already knows this. And with no windows in the underground basement and a tornado warning going on outside, it made it all the more terrifying. There were all sorts of strange and scary noises outside that I just couldn't make heads or tails of. And the only thing I knew for sure was that the tornado warning kept flashing over and over, again and again on the face of my phone. I began looking around the basement just for something to keep my attention. My two kitties remained at my feet the entire time. They were obviously a bit scared of what was going on, and I had to do my best in order to keep them calm. A tornado had to be much scarier for them because they didn't have any idea what was going on or why they were in that basement to begin with. As I was flashing the light around, I caught something that I hadn't expected. I saw something move in the crawl space of the house when the light passed by something, and when I went back, I got the shock of my life by seeing a person in the crawl space of the house. There was only about 2 feet between the floor of the house and the ground of the crawl space, so the person was crouched down on their stomach, and when I shone the light back onto it, whoever it was began moving. I did the only thing I could. I grabbed my cats, and even though they were startled, I decided to try to get up the stairs. I then ran fast up the stairs and out of the basement as quickly as I could. It was hard with the cats clawing at me because they were scared, but I could put up with some scratching if I could get into the house safely with my pets. I didn't know what to do. I locked myself in the house with the cats. I tried calling emergency services, but I couldn't get through. I figured with the tornado they were probably overly busy anyway, but all I could do was take the cats into my room, and I locked the 3 of us in the closet. I didn't come out until my roommates came home. We all 3 went down in the basement with bats and knives in order to see if the person was still in our crawl space. It was scary as hell going down there in the dark, knowing that I had seen a person down there. We had to shine the lights in all the corners and behind the water heater, the furnace, and everything down there to see if someone was still there. I had never been more scared in my entire life. We didn't find someone there. We shined our lights back into the crawl space, trying to see through all the shadows. We didn't see anyone there either. My roommates at first thought I hadn't really seen anyone, but I knew that I had. It wasn't until the next day when I got the proof that I needed, and the power was back on and we had good light again. I found all sorts of empty food containers and other signs that someone had been in our basement. It wasn't just in the crawl space either. Someone, likely a homeless person, had been living in our basement, which didn't have a locked outside door. And it looks like they had been in there for a while. They must have fled sometime during the night before my roommate had gotten back. I never found out who it was, but the levels of terrifying were quite high. Not just seeing the person in there, which was quite scary, but also thinking that someone had been living in our basement for who knows how long. Number 2, grocery night. I used to work in the bakery of a grocery store. The store closed at 10 p.m. every night and opened at 7 a.m. in the morning. However, I had to get there at midnight in order to make sure all the bread was made long before the store opened, so I had a key to get into the store and was often there for hours all by myself. I was only 19 years old at the time, so I hadn't had a lot of experience out in the workforce when this happened, but I was the type of guy who liked to be up overnight, so working in the bakery was very good for me. So this was a summer night. I had been sleeping and got up so I could leave my house around 11 p.m. I didn't know how to drive, so I walked to work. And this was a very beautiful and windy night, so the walk there was going to be really nice. I lived in a subdivision that was on the opposite side of town of the grocery store. It was a very small town, mostly known at the time as a retirement town, so it was absolutely dead at 11 p.m. when I was walking through it. When I got to the parking lot of the store, I noticed that there was a car in the parking lot. but it was set very far away from the entrance to the store. I didn't think a lot of it, but it wasn't something that I had seen there before. I entered the parking lot and began walking toward the store. I didn't notice anything from the car, though, until I went up to the door and began to unlock it. That is when I heard a car door shut. I reflexively looked back over at the car. 2 men had gotten out of the car. They actually began walking toward the store, and of course this immediately caused me alarm. Fortunately, however, they had parked far across the parking lot, and had no chance of getting to the store before I was in it. I closed the sliding door and I locked it before going further into the store. I started heading back to the bakery. Of course, before I could even get there, I heard the doorbell for the store ringing. When the deli workers came in at 5 a.m., they didn't have a key, so they would ring the bell so I could come and answer it. But the moment I heard this bell, I knew that it had to be the 2 guys that I had seen. If someone else was supposed to be at the store, I would know about it. I wasn't supposed to open the doors for anyone except for the deli workers when they came in. All the other bakers had a key for the front door, and the meat manager always came in through the back door. So I paused, not knowing what to do. The bell kept ringing, though, so I figured I should go back and see what was going on. I'm sure you've been in a grocery store before, so you know that, like many stores, you have to walk in through the automatic doors into a foyer of sorts, where the carts are kept, and from there you walk into the store. So just by walking by, I couldn't see the people standing outside the door, until I walked around the corner and into the foyer. When I did, only one of them was standing there, but I knew that I had seen 2 people. So I walked up to the door and asked what he wanted. The guy told me that he was there to do a deep cleaning of the store. I told him that no one had told me about it, that I was not allowed to let anyone into the store, except for deli workers. But the guy kept insisting that he was the cleaner, and that I should let him in the store. I should have just walked away, but I was feeling a bit awkward, and part of me almost made me begin to step toward the door, to unlock it. However, as I did, I noticed that someone was standing off to the side, almost out of sight. And the one thing I could tell about that guy was that he was wearing a ski mask. That was the point that I turned around. The guy started yelling and pounding on the door, saying that I had to let him in. I didn't. I did the smart thing and called the police. Of course, the guy was lying about being a cleaner. The owner had never heard of the guy, so I'm glad I wasn't stupid enough to open the door. Number 3. Thing. I saw the weirdest thing one time. When I was visiting my parents' home. This was only a few years after I had moved out on my own. My parents had some nice house out there in the country. I had just visited them for a weekly visit on the weekend. I think I was 21 years old at the time. My parents lived in a very nice house, out on a lonely hill. There were other houses out in the hills too, but they were all off the road down long driveways. It was always nice to go out there and visit because it was so peaceful and tranquil. It was quite a drive from my place to theirs and back, but my parents always went to bed a lot earlier than I could ever consider. They would always head to bed around 9 p.m., and I would still be wide awake by the time that I got home. So on this day I said goodbye to my parents and I walked out of the house. The inside lights had already gone out, and the only lights on were very dim porch light. My car was sitting on the rocky driveway behind 3 other vehicles. As I had done hundreds of times before, I took out my keys while walking in the dark to my car. As I was unlocking the door to my car, I heard a really horrible sound, and I wish I could even describe it to you, but I really can't. It sounded like some sort of animal, was in a tremendous amount of pain or something, and it caused me quite a start. But mostly, it was because it was unlike any other sound I'd ever heard before. I turned around and looked around the yard. Like I mentioned, there wasn't much light, except for the lights from the porch. But the side of the house was the area that I had heard the noise from, so I looked around in that area. At first I didn't see anything, but then I heard that horrible wail again, and then afterwards it was a growling noise, and then I saw the strangest looking animal come out from around the side of the house. It was on all fours, as big as a Great Dane, and had only clumps of hair here and there on its body. Its mouth was open and it had huge, scary teeth. The thing began growling at me, and I got terrified. I got into my car as it started to come at me. Fortunately, I was able to back out of the driveway and get far away from it. It chased my car a little bit, but I got away. I called my parents and told them what I saw. I didn't want whatever it was to hurt them. However, they never saw it. To this day, I have no idea what that weird thing was.
Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please feel free to click the subscribe button and bell below, or click the icon of Ichigo the cat that will appear at the end of this closing. Leave me a comment, and share this video with someone you think might enjoy it. If you have an original story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please email it to the address included in the description. But most importantly, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.